Welcome to the Peace and Dharma channel, where we explore the beautiful values in life and the valuable lessons from Buddhism to live a peaceful, happy, and more profound life. Life is like a river, and each of us is a boat, drifting along the waves and winds. Along this journey, we may encounter storms and suffering. In such moments, we may feel confused, lost, and uncertain of the way out. But perhaps, these moments of pain are precisely opportunities for growth, to realize that in suffering, we can find peace. The Buddha taught, suffering is part of life, but it is not the end. It is the beginning of the path to enlightenment. And in our journey to seek inner peace, we must understand that everything in life has a cause. The suffering we experience is not random but the result of deep-rooted causes from our own actions, thoughts, and emotions. Therefore, the path to peace is not about avoiding suffering but understanding and transforming it into enlightenment, wisdom, and compassion. In Buddhism, there is an important concept called dependent origination. Everything in life is interconnected, not random. Everything that happens in our lives, whether joyful or sorrowful, is the result of a chain of causes and conditions. Therefore, when facing difficulties, instead of blaming, getting angry, or feeling sad, we can ask ourselves, what can I learn from this? Dependent origination not only refers to human relationships but also to everything around us. Everything that happens is not random but connected, and when we realize this, we understand that everything is a lesson. And in this process of understanding, mindfulness is the key to unlocking the door to enlightenment. Mindfulness is being awake in every moment of life. When we are fully present with what is happening in the present moment, not being pulled by the past or worried about the future, our mind becomes peaceful and serene. Mindfulness is not just a meditation technique but a state of mind, a way of life, a deep awareness that every action, every word, and every thought impacts ourselves and others. When we live with mindfulness, all our actions become refined, sincere, and ethical. Each step, each breath, each thought, is an enlightened action. Peace is one of the core values in Buddhism. But peace does not mean a life without storms or challenges. Peace is the understanding and acceptance that everything can change, that suffering is part of life, and only when we understand the impermanence of all things can we find peace. Peace is not about abandoning life or running away from reality, but about harmonizing with oneself, realizing that everything we have is a gift from life. The Buddha taught, live like a lotus flower, blooming in the swamp without being tainted. Peace is when we can live amidst the storms of life without being knocked down. When we understand that we can change ourselves to live harmoniously with others, and make the world a better place. Peace comes from acceptance, not avoidance. When we accept life as a natural flow, without competition or comparison, our minds naturally become serene, and peace follows. Suffering is a significant topic in Buddhism. But suffering is not something we should fear. The Buddha taught, suffering is a part of life, but it is not the nature of life. Suffering is a sign, a warning, showing us that we are not living correctly or fully. If we understand the cause of suffering, we can transform it, no longer letting it control us. Suffering can arise from many sources, from loss, from dissatisfaction in life, from disappointment, or from broken relationships. But in all this suffering, liberation lies in how we perceive and face it. When we see suffering not as a disaster but as a lesson, we will find the path to liberation. Buddhism teaches that liberation is not about running away from this world but about mastering ourselves, mastering our minds. Liberation is when our minds are no longer bound by greed, anger, and ignorance. So, what must we do to achieve liberation? How can we transform from a person full of suffering to one living in peace and happiness? The answer lies in transforming our inner selves, our thoughts, and actions. We must learn to let go of unnecessary things. Learn to forgive and love ourselves first, and love others as part of ourselves. We need to learn humility, to recognize that we are not the center of the universe, and everything around us has value. We need to learn compassion, not just toward others but also toward ourselves. When we do this, we will find the path to peace. Dear friends, in life, there will always be challenges, there will always be suffering. But we are not victims of these things. We are the ones who actively create our own lives. When we change our perspective on life, when we practice mindfulness and wisdom, when we live with compassion and tolerance, we will find peace in our hearts and find liberation right in this life. Dear friends, in this life, no one is exempt from experiencing suffering, from moments of darkness when feelings of despair take over the soul. Suffering is an inseparable part of the human journey. But rather than seeing suffering as something bad, as a misfortune, why not view it as an opportunity to learn and grow? The Buddha once said, "Suffering is the nature of life, but suffering is not the end. It is the path to enlightenment." When we understand that suffering is not something permanent, and it is not something unjust or random, we will begin to realize that suffering is part of the learning process, part of our awareness of life, and of ourselves. Suffering comes and then passes. But if we do not understand it, if we do not face it, we will become trapped in it, and this will make us suffer forever. In Buddhism, we have the saying, "Suffering arises from ignorance, and enlightenment is the path to liberation from suffering." Therefore, instead of blaming life, we must face it with a full perspective and wisdom. Remember, no suffering is meaningless. Every pain carries an important lesson about awakening, compassion, and humility. So, when suffering comes to us, it often brings with it emotions such as anger, frustration, and even hatred. These emotions, when not properly understood, can bind us even more tightly to suffering, creating a cycle that is hard to break. In the face of such emotions, it is essential to practice mindfulness and reflection. The Buddha taught us that when we experience negative emotions, we should not simply suppress or ignore them, but rather acknowledge them, understand their origins, and release them with wisdom. Resentment, in particular, is one of the most destructive forms of suffering. It arises when we hold on to past hurts, injustices, or perceived wrongs. It poisons our hearts and minds, creating a heavy burden that can affect not only our own well-being but also our relationships with others. Resentment blinds us to the present moment and prevents us from experiencing peace and harmony in our lives. The Buddha emphasized that holding on to anger or resentment is like carrying a burning coal in your hand, hoping to throw it at someone else, but it is you who gets burned. Therefore, the key to overcoming resentment is forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about condoning the actions of others, but about freeing ourselves from the grip of negative emotions. It is about releasing the need for revenge or retaliation and choosing peace instead. When we forgive, we let go of the burden of resentment and open the door to healing and liberation. As the Buddha said, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. In this sense, the practice of forgiveness is not a sign of weakness, but a powerful act of inner strength and wisdom. As we reflect on suffering and resentment, we must also remember that the path to overcoming these emotions is not always easy. It requires patience, mindfulness, and a deep understanding of our own minds and hearts. It requires us to look beyond the surface of our emotions and explore the deeper causes of our suffering. And most importantly, it requires us to cultivate compassion, not only for others but also for ourselves. In our daily lives, we can practice letting go of resentment by being mindful of our thoughts and reactions. In moments of anger or frustration, we can pause and reflect, allowing ourselves to recognize the emotion without immediately reacting to it. This pause gives us space to choose a more constructive response, one that aligns with peace and wisdom rather than with suffering and retaliation. It is also essential to practice self-compassion. We often find it easier to forgive others than to forgive ourselves. Yet, self-resentment and guilt are equally harmful, as they keep us trapped in cycles of negative self-judgment. To heal from suffering, we must learn to be kind to ourselves, to recognize our imperfections and mistakes without harshness, and to understand that growth comes through learning from our experiences, not by punishing ourselves. Another important aspect of overcoming suffering and resentment is understanding the impermanence of life. Everything in this world, including our pain and frustrations, is temporary. This insight is a cornerstone of Buddhist teaching. When we realize that suffering is not eternal, and that every difficult moment will eventually pass, we can begin to detach from the immediate weight of our emotions. Rather than identifying with our pain, we can observe it, acknowledge it, and let it go when the time is right. Ultimately, the path to overcoming suffering and resentment is a process of transformation. It involves turning inward to examine our own hearts and minds, releasing attachment to the things that cause us pain, and embracing the wisdom of impermanence. Through this process, we begin to cultivate a deeper sense of peace, resilience, and compassion in our lives. As we walk this path, we can remember the Buddha's teachings, which offer guidance and solace. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without, the Buddha said. By turning inward and developing an attitude of mindfulness, understanding, and forgiveness, we can transform suffering into an opportunity for growth. This transformation does not mean that we will never experience pain or difficulty, but it means that we will face them with a mind that is clearer, more compassionate, and more equipped to heal. So, how can we let go of resentment? In Buddhism, there is a very powerful and profound method, which is the practice of compassion. Compassion is not just love, it is deep understanding and empathy. When we have compassion, we do not just love others, but we also love ourselves. Compassion helps us understand that every person has their own circumstances, and every action they take arises from some cause. It is this understanding that will allow us to release judgments and grudges. To practice compassion, we need to take a few basic steps. View with a compassionate heart. When we feel anger or resentment, we should pause for a moment, take a deep breath, and think about the other person's situation. Perhaps they have endured much pain, or they are facing difficulties that we cannot see. This perspective helps us understand that their actions are not necessarily intended to hurt us, but may come from their own suffering or challenges. Forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about allowing others to hurt us, it is about freeing ourselves from the burden of resentment. Forgiveness is a way of not being bound to the past, of not letting past hurts continue to hurt us. It is a means of liberation, not being shackled by past wrongs. Forgiveness does not mean condoning the wrongdoings, but choosing to release the emotional burden attached to them. Practice compassion through action. Practicing compassion is not just about thinking with the heart, but also about taking concrete actions. Do good things for others, regardless of how they treat us. When we help others, we not only bring joy to them but also to ourselves. One of the wonderful teachings that the Buddha shared about compassion is not only about feeling love but also about acting out that love. By embracing these steps, we gradually begin to let go of our resentment and cultivate peace and harmony both within ourselves and in our relationships with others. Compassion becomes a transformative force that enables us to transcend the pain of resentment, allowing us to embrace forgiveness, inner peace, and understanding. Dear friends, today we will continue our journey to better understand and live more fully in our relationships with others by exploring an important topic: family bond and conflict resolution. In Buddhist tradition, family bond is not a simple emotion or possessiveness, but a profound connection between all beings, an invisible yet strong thread that binds everyone together. Buddhism teaches that in this universe, all things and phenomena are interconnected. Nothing exists in isolation, everything is the result of converging causes and conditions. Family bond is the manifestation of compassion and a deep understanding of the interrelationship between all of us. The Buddha taught that every relationship in life is an opportunity for us to practice noble virtues such as love, compassion, tolerance, and forgiveness. These relationships do not always bring joy or happiness, but it is in these challenges that we learn spiritual and emotional maturity. In Buddhism, family bond is not about attachment or possessiveness, rather, it is about giving, sacrificing, and recognizing that we are all transient beings, each undergoing our own unique journey through the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Family bond is the connection of hearts, the understanding of the impermanent nature of life. Therefore, when we love someone, we do not simply love the self or mine, but we love the interconnectedness of all beings. This love transcends personal desires and attachments, acknowledging that everything is impermanent and ever-changing. In this light, true love is not possessive but free and unconditional. It is the ability to accept others as they are, understanding their imperfections and struggles. Family bond, as taught in Buddhism, is not based on attachment or clinging. Instead, it is rooted in a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of all beings and the impermanence of life. This perspective allows us to love without possessiveness, to care for others without expecting anything in return. We do not hold on to people or things, but rather, we allow them to exist freely, as they are, without trying to control or change them. The Buddha also taught that family bond should be cultivated with wisdom and mindfulness. It is through this awareness that we can begin to see beyond our attachments and desires, and approach our relationships with clarity and compassion. When we are mindful in our relationships, we are able to see others not as obstacles or sources of suffering, but as fellow travelers on the path of life, each struggling with their own difficulties and seeking happiness in their own way. Furthermore, family bond in Buddhism is also about reconciliation and resolving conflicts. Conflicts, as natural as they are, offer us the opportunity to practice forgiveness and understanding. It is through conflict that we learn patience, tolerance, and how to let go of our egos. The Buddha taught that holding on to anger, resentment, and grudges only leads to suffering. It is through the practice of forgiveness that we can liberate ourselves and bring healing to our relationships. Forgiveness, in Buddhism, is not about forgetting the wrongs done to us, but about freeing ourselves from the emotional burden of those wrongs. By forgiving, we are not condoning the other person's actions, but rather, we are releasing ourselves from the cycle of suffering caused by resentment and anger. Forgiveness is a powerful tool for inner peace, and it is through forgiveness that we can truly heal and move forward in our relationships. In addition to forgiveness, reconciliation requires us to approach others with empathy and understanding. When we see others from the perspective of compassion, we begin to recognize that they, too, are subject to the same struggles and challenges of life. This understanding helps us to let go of judgments and build stronger, more harmonious relationships. Buddhism teaches that true peace in our relationships can only be achieved through understanding and compassion. By practicing mindfulness, patience, and forgiveness, we can create a space for peace and love to flourish in all of our interactions. And through these practices, we not only improve our own lives but also contribute to the well-being and happiness of those around us. When we hold on to resentment and dissatisfaction, it is the moment when we become trapped in negative thoughts and emotions, which only leads to more suffering. Forgiveness is not easy, but without it, our hearts cannot be free, and we cannot find true peace. Family is the place where family bonds are nurtured and developed, but it is also where conflicts and disagreements can easily arise. Differences in lifestyle, viewpoints, or even inappropriate actions can create wounds in the hearts of each family member. However, family is precisely where forgiveness must be practiced first and most strongly, because in family bonds, forgiveness can erase all distances between hearts. Buddhism always advises us that, when conflicts arise in the family, instead of blaming others, we should look at ourselves and reflect on whether there is something in our actions that may have caused harm to someone else. Forgiveness within the family is not only about forgiving others, but also about being willing to forgive ourselves. Sometimes, we may feel that we have been wronged, but it is essential to recognize that holding on to anger or bitterness only prolongs our suffering and prevents us from finding true peace. In the family, we must learn to forgive not only the mistakes of others but also our own mistakes. Self-forgiveness is the key to inner peace, and it enables us to move forward without being weighed down by the past. When we forgive ourselves, we free ourselves from guilt and regret, and we can heal and grow spiritually. In Buddhism, the practice of forgiveness is an essential part of cultivating compassion. The Buddha taught that we should forgive others not because they deserve forgiveness, but because we deserve peace. Forgiveness is a way of letting go of the past, of freeing ourselves from the emotional burdens that prevent us from living fully in the present moment. Forgiveness in the family creates a foundation for deeper love and understanding. When we forgive, we acknowledge the humanity of others, and we give them the space to grow and change. It is through forgiveness that relationships are strengthened, and family bonds become unbreakable. In this world, each of us carries our own story, our wounds, and our scars from the past. We carry pains and memories that are not easy to overcome. Buddhism teaches that, on our spiritual journey, we must learn to let go and transform these sufferings into valuable lessons, so that our hearts are not imprisoned by anger, fear, or doubt. One of the core methods to achieving peace is tolerance, a virtue that the Buddha constantly emphasized. Tolerance is not about accepting wrongful actions, but rather the ability to see all situations from a broader perspective, with a more open heart. When we have tolerance, we can eliminate attachment and open the path to liberation for ourselves. When we face challenges, especially from those who have hurt us, feelings of betrayal or disappointment can lead us into a state of frustration, anger, and resentment. However, dear friends, when we only cling to these emotions, when we are consumed by anger and bitterness, we are the ones who suffer the most. These feelings are like heavy chains that bind our hearts, preventing us from moving forward in life. The more we hold on to them, the more our peace is disturbed, and the more we remain trapped in a cycle of negativity. Excessive vigilance can also arise from this state of mind. We become overly cautious, always on guard, expecting others to hurt us again. We build walls around ourselves, afraid to trust, to love, and to open up. But the Buddha taught that these walls only serve to imprison us. The key to freedom lies not in building defenses, but in cultivating a heart that is open, forgiving, and compassionate. To practice tolerance, we must first learn to forgive, not only others but also ourselves. Forgiveness is a powerful tool for healing. It allows us to release the pain of the past and move forward without the weight of resentment and anger. By forgiving others, we break the chains of attachment and regain our inner peace. Similarly, when we forgive ourselves for the mistakes we've made, we free our hearts from guilt and regret, enabling us to live more fully in the present moment. Tolerance also means accepting the imperfections of others. We all have our flaws, and we all make mistakes. To truly practice tolerance, we must embrace the idea that no one is perfect, and that everyone is doing the best they can with the resources and understanding they have. When we can see the humanity in others, we can extend the same grace and compassion to them that we would want for ourselves. In overcoming excessive vigilance, we must learn to trust again. Trust is not something that can be given easily, but it is essential for our emotional well-being. By letting go of fear and suspicion, we open ourselves up to the possibility of connection, love, and harmony. Trusting others does not mean being naive or ignoring red flags, but rather it is about finding the balance between caution and openness. It is about allowing ourselves to experience life without the constant fear of being hurt. Dear friends, the practice of tolerance and letting go of excessive vigilance is an ongoing journey. It is not something that happens overnight, but with each step, we move closer to peace, freedom, and happiness. May we all cultivate the courage to forgive, the strength to trust, and the wisdom to embrace each moment with an open heart. When we face suffering, instead of blaming others or life itself, instead of holding on to wounds in our hearts, we can view that suffering as an opportunity to understand ourselves and those around us. Only when we are able to transform pain into tolerance can we truly free ourselves. Forgiveness is not about allowing others to continue hurting us, but about liberating ourselves from the burden of anger, resentment, and hurt. Forgiveness is the method by which we can live lightly, not bound by negative emotions. Every time we forgive, we not only free others, but we also liberate ourselves. The Buddha taught, when we do not forgive, we are holding ourselves captive in a cycle of sadness. Tolerance is not only for others but must also begin with ourselves. In life, we often encounter challenges, mistakes, and failures. When we recognize that we ourselves are imperfect, we will understand that others can also make mistakes. And because of this, we can be tolerant towards them. We need to understand that our suffering does not come solely from others or the world, but from our own attachment to our own expectations and judgments. By releasing these attachments and cultivating compassion and tolerance, we are able to transform our suffering into a tool for personal growth and healing. This is why the Buddha always emphasized the importance of self-compassion and self-forgiveness. If we are able to forgive ourselves for our own shortcomings, we will be able to forgive others as well. Only when we accept our own imperfections can we begin to understand the imperfections of others. In the process of learning to forgive, we gradually let go of the mental constructs that keep us trapped in negativity, and we open our hearts to true peace and liberation. Excessive vigilance and guarding our hearts from potential harm can create a false sense of security, but in doing so, we distance ourselves from the love and connection that we all seek. The more we try to protect ourselves from harm, the more we isolate ourselves from others. The path to true freedom is not through constant defense, but through open-heartedness and trust. We must learn to trust life and trust others, knowing that every relationship, every experience, is an opportunity for growth, for learning, and for cultivating greater compassion. Gratitude is one of the most valuable virtues that each person can cultivate and practice in life. In Buddhism, gratitude is not merely an emotion or attitude towards life, but a profound spiritual practice that helps individuals build lasting relationships and create a peaceful existence. This is because, when we have gratitude, we view our interactions with the world around us through the lens of love and empathy. Gratitude is the means by which we connect with each other, and in these relationships, we can live more authentically, with greater understanding, and act with compassion. Every word of thanks, every action that expresses gratitude, is a small step towards building good relationships within the family, the community, and with everyone around us. Gratitude is not just a feeling of joy when receiving help or support from others, but a deep recognition of the interconnection between ourselves and everyone around us. In life, no one can live in isolation from the community, no one can exist entirely alone. We are all interdependent, and our lives are deeply connected with one another. When we practice gratitude, we open our hearts to others, acknowledging their contributions to our well-being. Gratitude helps us see the beauty of life, even in difficult times, and reminds us to appreciate the people and circumstances that allow us to grow. By cultivating gratitude, we not only enrich our relationships with others but also cultivate an internal sense of peace and contentment. Gratitude teaches us to focus on the positive, even in the face of adversity, and helps us to appreciate life's blessings, no matter how small. In Buddhism, it is said that gratitude is the heart of all virtues. Without gratitude, it is easy to fall into a state of dissatisfaction, always looking for something more or better, constantly seeking external circumstances to change. But when we develop a sense of gratitude, we realize that happiness comes from within and that all things, both good and bad, are opportunities for learning and growth. A grateful heart can transform our relationships. It allows us to forgive others more easily, be more patient, and respond with kindness. It strengthens the bonds of love and trust and creates an environment of harmony and peace. In families, communities, and friendships, expressing gratitude is essential in nurturing positive connections and resolving conflicts. In our daily lives, we often overlook the countless acts of kindness, both big and small, that we receive from others. Whether it's the support of family members, the help of friends, or even the kindness of strangers, these moments are all gifts that deserve to be acknowledged. By practicing gratitude, we acknowledge the interconnection of all beings and recognize that we are not separate from the world, but part of a vast, interconnected whole. Gratitude also teaches us to be humble. When we acknowledge how much we rely on others, we recognize our dependence on the kindness, love, and support of the people around us. This humility allows us to act with more compassion, to share more generously, and to support others in their times of need. Gratitude helps us recognize that we are not the center of the universe, but part of a larger, collective existence. In conclusion, gratitude is not just a pleasant emotion, but a powerful tool for creating meaningful connections and fostering peace. It enables us to see beyond our personal desires and to cultivate a heart of love, empathy, and understanding. By practicing gratitude, we open ourselves to the blessings of life and build strong, lasting relationships that contribute to a harmonious, peaceful world. Work relationships are sometimes undervalued, but in reality, they are a crucial factor in both personal success and the collective growth of the entire team. Gratitude in the workplace is not just a simple courtesy, but an important virtue that helps build trust, respect, and cooperation among colleagues. When we express gratitude for the contributions of our coworkers, regardless of their size, we not only create a positive work environment but also foster an atmosphere of unity, creativity, and effectiveness. In the workplace, everyone faces their own challenges and difficulties. Gratitude helps us not only recognize the strengths of our colleagues but also empathize with their weaknesses. This gratitude creates an open space for communication, encouraging sharing and mutual support. When every member of a team feels appreciated and valued, they will be more motivated and more committed to contributing to the collective effort. Friendship is one of the most cherished relationships in life. Gratitude is the way we nurture friendships, maintain connections, and build long-lasting bonds with our friends. A lasting friendship is not always based solely on wonderful experiences or moments of joy. It is, in fact, the understanding, support, and shared values that help a friendship endure through life's ups and downs. Through gratitude, we acknowledge the importance of these relationships and invest in strengthening them over time. In this life, amidst countless fluctuations, we are constantly faced with challenges that are not easy to overcome. The waves of pain, anxiety, and sorrow can easily sweep us away, making our minds restless and unsettled. However, In the vast ocean of the world, inner peace serves as the solid anchor that prevents our souls from being carried away by these turbulent currents. Inner peace is not just a state of emotional comfort, but a profound virtue, a realization of how to live, how to perceive, and how to engage with the world around us. In Buddhism, peace is the stillness of the heart, the liberation from all afflictions, and the freedom from the worries and suffering that life brings. It is the natural state of the soul, unburdened by attachments to memories, not swept away by delusions of the past or the future. True peace is the ability to remain present, to let go of all distractions, and to live in harmony with the present moment. When we truly understand the value of peace, we will realize that it is not a gift that comes from the external world, but something that must be cultivated within us. Peace is a practice that starts from the inside, from our own awareness and intention. It is a process of training the mind to focus on what is important and to release the trivial distractions that cause us stress and suffering. To achieve peace, we need to free ourselves from attachments and desires. We must let go of the need for control over everything, releasing our fears and anxieties that arise from not knowing what the future holds. We also need to let go of our regrets about the past, the things we wish we had done differently. Only when we free ourselves from these mental burdens can we create space for peace to emerge. This is why in Buddhist teachings, we are encouraged to practice mindfulness and meditation to calm the mind, to observe our thoughts without attachment, and to cultivate a sense of balance and contentment within ourselves. In the practice of peace, we learn that we do not need to change the external world in order to find happiness. Rather, happiness comes from within. From the way we perceive and respond to the world. When we shift our mindset from a place of lack and desire to a place of gratitude and acceptance, we begin to experience inner tranquility. By accepting life as it is, with all its imperfections and uncertainties, we are no longer ruled by stress and anxiety. Inner peace does not mean the absence of challenges or discomfort. Life will always present us with difficulties, but when we are at peace within ourselves, we are better able to face these challenges with calmness and clarity. We no longer react impulsively to external circumstances. Instead, we respond with wisdom and understanding. This is the true nature of happiness, not something that is dependent on external conditions, but something that comes from within, from a deep and lasting sense of peace. The Buddha taught that gratitude is the root of happiness. When we express gratitude for what we have, both the grand and the seemingly insignificant, we will begin to notice that life is full of gifts. Gratitude is not simply a pretense of contentment with what we have, it is the deep realization that everything in life, no matter how small or large, holds immense value. If we make gratitude a regular practice, even during difficult times, we will come to see that life is not lacking in beauty or goodness. Gratitude is the way to free our hearts from feelings of insufficiency and worry, because when we are grateful, we gain a clear understanding that we already possess countless precious things. From the loved ones by our side, to the moments of peace, to the life lessons that help us grow, we are surrounded by wealth. Sometimes, happiness is simply the act of being thankful for our struggles because they offer us the opportunity to grow and mature. Gratitude also serves as a means to keep our hearts fresh and vibrant, preventing them from being consumed by negativity. It is through gratitude that we can transform sadness, filling our hearts with joy. When we become aware of the value of everything around us, we naturally open up to more love, more serenity, and more happiness. Every moment becomes an opportunity to nurture our inner peace through gratitude. And by practicing it, we free ourselves from the cycle of dissatisfaction. Gratitude allows us to see beauty in the simple things, find goodness in the small, and embrace growth even in the midst of hardship. It teaches us to cherish every experience and helps us build a more meaningful connection with ourselves, others, and the world around us. Life, with all its joys and sorrows, successes and failures, ups and downs, is a series of inevitable experiences. From the moment we are born until the day we close our eyes, each of us must face challenges, difficulties, and opportunities for growth. And it is often in these difficult moments that we seek peace and happiness. But do we truly understand the concept of peace and happiness? In Buddhism, peace is not about avoiding or running away from life's challenges, but rather a state of the soul where we find harmony, freedom, and stillness in all circumstances. True peace comes from letting go of worries, fears, and the burdens of the heart. It comes from understanding the impermanent nature of all things and learning to accept life as it is. We cannot change the past, nor can we be certain of the future, but we can live fully in the present moment, and in each of those moments, we can find deep peace. Peace is not a gift that someone gives us, nor is it a state we attain by mere chance. It is a practice, a choice, and a way of being. True peace comes when we let go of attachment, resentment, and the desire to control things that are beyond our reach. Happiness, too, is not something external that we can seek or acquire. It is an inner state that arises when we are at peace with ourselves and with the world around us. Happiness comes from living with mindfulness, compassion, and gratitude for all that we have, even the challenges, as they provide us with opportunities for growth and learning. As we move through life, we will continue to face hardships and suffering, but we can choose how we respond. By cultivating mindfulness, by practicing forgiveness, by embracing gratitude, and by letting go of attachment, we can find the peace and happiness that are already within us, waiting to be uncovered. In the teachings of the Buddha, the path to happiness and peace is not a destination but a journey. It is a journey of transformation, of realizing that the key to peace lies not in the outside world, but in our ability to transform our inner world. When we do this, we will find that the true peace and happiness we seek have always been within us, and the challenges of life become stepping stones on the path to awakening. It is this acceptance that helps us let go of the burdens in our hearts, and from there, peace and happiness can seep into our lives. One of the most important keys to achieving peace and happiness is letting go. Letting go does not mean abandoning life or giving up on our dreams. But it means letting go of the things that cause us suffering and negative thoughts. In Buddhist teachings, we learn to let go of desires, worries, and negative emotions so that our hearts can be free. When we let go, we are no longer imprisoned by thoughts, emotions, and the burdens of the past. We become freer, no longer dependent on external conditions to feel happiness or peace. From that point on, our hearts can open and embrace peace in every moment. Just like an ancient tree needs to be nourished by water, light, and air, our souls also need to be nourished by positive qualities such as compassion, tolerance, and understanding. When we care for our hearts each day, through practices like meditation, mindfulness, and gratitude, we realize that we are no longer chasing after happiness in the external world. True happiness comes from within, and it is cultivated by the positive and loving thoughts we plant in our minds. Letting go is not a one-time act but a continual process, just like pruning and caring for a tree. As we practice letting go, we learn to release attachment, desires, and expectations, which frees us to live in the present moment. Only when we stop holding on to what no longer serves us can we experience the joy of life as it is, in its simplicity, its impermanence, and its beauty. In life, challenges will always come. But it is through acceptance, letting go, and nurturing our hearts that we find the peace and happiness that is already within us, waiting to be awakened.